You know, when you picture academic research, your mind probably jumps straight to a very specific image.
Oh, yeah. Sterile labs, right?
Exactly. Sterile labs, fluorescent lights, dense spreadsheets. This really rigid, totally objective pursuit of hard data. It's very clinical.
Right. Very detached.
But then on the flip side, think about when you picture Buddhism. You're probably visualizing, I don't know, silent meditation.
Monks in robes.
Yeah, spirituality, a journey toward inner peace, releasing worldly attachments. So for you listening right now, the question is, what exactly happens when you smash those two entirely different worlds together?
It sounds like a total paradox, honestly.
It really does. We're trying to answer a pretty massive underlying question in this deep dive, like how do you take something as deeply internal as human suffering and then measure it with the objective rigor of modern science?
I mean, it's almost like trying to measure the weight of a thought using a physical scale because, one discipline is deeply external and quantifiable and the other is just intensely internal and experiential.
But it turns out not only is it possible to mix them, it is actively being taught right now at the graduate level.
Yeah, which is wild.
It is. So today, our mission is to explore this fascinating master's level course. It's called Course 625-103, Research Methodology in Buddhism.
Catchy title.
Right. And it's taught by Assistant Professor Dr. Khantong Wattanapradith at Mahachulalongkorn Rajavidyalaya University.
Which I think we agree we'll just refer to as MCU for this deep dive.
Yes, definitely MCU for short. We are going to unpack the syllabus, the slides, and really the core philosophy of this class, because we want to see exactly how it trains students to fuse ancient spiritual wisdom with incredibly strict modern academic standards.
And what's so compelling about the materials we have for this deep dive is that the course doesn't just ask students to study Buddhism using Western methods.
Right, that would be the standard way.
Yeah, that would be the safe, expected approach, like an anthropologist studying a tribe. But instead, it flips the script entirely. It asks students to use Buddhism as the actual research methodology.
Which is such a massive paradigm shift. And before we can even really wrap our heads around that, we have to look at how this course redefines the very concept of research right out of the gate.
Because if you want to change how you research, you first have to agree on what the word even means, right?
Exactly. And the course slides, they start with this literal breakdown, like research.
Meaning to do again, repeatedly.
Right. And search meaning to seek or investigate. So it's the repeated, systematic search for reliable truth.
Which makes perfect sense. Very standard.
It does. But then, and this is where they lose me a little bit, the materials introduce this acronym from the Pan-Pacific Science Congress. And I have to be honest, I looked at this and I kind of groaned.
Oh, the 8-letter acronym.
Yes, they took the word RESEARCH and made every single letter stand for something.
Right, it's recruitment and relationship.
Education and efficiency. Sciences and stimulation.
Evaluation and environment.
Aim and attitude. Result. Curiosity. And horizon.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. Let me push back on this right away, because we are talking about a serious graduate-level methodology class. Isn't a forced 8-letter acronym just a bit, I don't know, cheesy?
A little bit, yeah.
It feels like one of those motivational posters you'd see in a middle school guidance counselor's office.
Hang in there, baby. Yeah, I completely see why you'd say that. On the surface, it definitely feels like a simple mnemonic trick, just to help you pass a quiz.
Right.
But if we look closer at the actual words chosen for this acronym, it represents a really profound philosophical departure from how we usually operate in academia. Think about traditional Western quantitative research. Like, what are you fundamentally taught to do?
You're taught to isolate variables, mostly.
Exactly. You want to control the environment at all costs.
So you don't contaminate your data.
Right. And that is exactly what this acronym is challenging. It brings in words like relationship, environment, and attitude right from the very beginning. It's forcing the graduate student to see research completely holistically.
Okay, so it's not just about the numbers.
No, not at all. Like, if you are researching, say, standardized test scores in a local school district, traditional research might just look at income levels and test results in a total vacuum.
Just data points on a graph.
Right. But this acronym is kind of a foundational warning. It's saying that you cannot separate the researcher's curiosity and their attitude from the results they get.
Oh, interesting.
Your aim, the efficiency of your methods, the whole environment you're studying it is all deeply interconnected. If you try to study a human problem in a vacuum, You just aren't getting the real truth.
Okay, well, when you frame it like that, it isn't just a cheesy motivational poster. It's really setting the rules of engagement.
Exact.
Because if you adopt this holistic mindset that the researcher, the subject, and the environment are all tangled up together, it begs the question, how do you actually go about finding the truth without making a massive mess?
Right. That is the pivotal question of the course. And Dr. Wattanapradith actually sets up two traditional Western paradigms side by side.
So the students know exactly what sandbox they're playing in, basically?
Exactly, before they even introduce the Buddhist element. So first you have positivism, which is the backbone of quantitative research.
The world of hard numbers, statistics, all of that.
Right. The ontology here, which is just a fancy word for the belief about the nature of reality, the ontology in positivism is realism.
Okay.
It operates on the assumption that there is one single universal truth out there waiting to be discovered. And the epistemology, how we know what we know, states that the knower and the known are completely separate entities.
So, like, you stand behind the two-way glass, you observe the subject, and you absolutely do not interfere.
Yes. It uses deductive reasoning, and the course notes point out that in positivism, your research outline is incredibly detailed.
Driven by existing literature, right?
Right, and it's totally fixed before you even step foot in the field to do your experiments or surveys, because the ultimate goal is to generalize your findings to a whole population.
But then on the other side, the course presents phenomenology, which aligns with qualitative research.
Yes, and this is much closer to the Buddhist perspective.
In phenomenology, the truth isn't one universal absolute, right? It's constructed, it's subjective, and it is highly dependent on context.
The knower and the known interact. You can't just stand behind the glass anymore. You're in the room, and honestly, your very presence changes the temperature of the room.
Right. The slides explicitly state everything is interconnected. Cause and effect are inseparable. Causality isn't just a simple straight line of A causing B.
It's a web.
Let's actually ground this in a real-world scenario so we don't get totally lost in the academic jargon.
Good idea.
Imagine a dispute over a local river's water rights, right, between a community of generational farmers on one side and a brand new industrial factory on the other.
Okay, that's a perfect test case. Under the positivist quantitative approach, the researcher might just look at, say, the gallons of water consumed,
Right.
the agricultural output lost in dollars, and the factory's profit margins. It's all numbers.
And there's this really beautiful visual analogy in the course materials that describes this positivist approach as a closing flower.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right. You start with this big, broad, general theory maybe that industrialization decreases local agricultural yields. And then you test it. You narrow it down, you control all the variables, and you close in on one tiny, inescapable conclusion.
The petals literally close up tight around a single data point.
Exactly. But if you tackle that exact same water dispute using phenomenology, the qualitative approach, the materials describe it as a blooming flower.
Right, because you start with a tiny seed. Maybe you conduct a single interview with just one farmer.
Just one conversation.
And as you listen to their specific, subjective human experience, you realize the water isn't just a resource to them. It's tied to their family history.
Their identity, the whole culture of the town.
Right, so the petals open up and expand to reveal this vast, interconnected context of the phenomena.
I mean, I get the blooming flower idea, and it sounds poetic and beautiful, but practically speaking, if my research just keeps expanding infinitely based on subjective human experiences, how on earth do I organize that into a 20-page thesis?
It sounds like a nightmare to write.
Right. How do you keep the blooming flower from just becoming a chaotic weed of everyone's feelings?
That tension is exactly why Course 625103 introduces its core innovation. Because you're right, phenomenology opens up the complexity of the human experience, but it desperately needs a structure to remain rigorous.
Okay.
So this is where the syllabus transitions away from Western philosophy and adopts a uniquely Buddhist research framework. The course takes the most foundational teaching of Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths, and repurposes it as a step-by-step academic methodology.
Let's really slow down and unpack this part. Because for anyone listening who might only have a passing familiarity with Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths are the absolute core of the Buddhist teaching.
The foundation.
Seeing them mapped onto graduate-level research steps is just wild to me.
Let's walk through it using your water rights scenario.
Yeah.
So step one of the Four Noble Truths is dukkha, which translates to suffering or dissatisfaction.
Right.
In this research framework, Dukkha becomes the research problem.
So instead of a sterile problem statement about water tables dropping by 3 inches, you're actually tasked with describing the suffering itself.
Exactly. Who is hurting in this farming community?
What does this conflict actually look like on the ground? What does the fear of losing their livelihood feel like from the inside?
You're forced to start from a place of deep empathy, not just data collection.
Which is incredible. And once you locate that pain point, you move to step 2, which is samudaya, the origin or the cause of the suffering.
Right, and in a standard academic paper, this would just be your root cause analysis. But the Buddhist framework pushes the researcher to look way deeper than just, systemic or economic causes.
Yeah, the syllabus demands you ask things like, is this problem ultimately stemming from lobha, which is greed?
Right.
Is it dosa, which is hatred or anger? Or is it moha, which is delusion and ignorance?
Which completely alters how you would code your qualitative data.
Yeah.
If I'm doing standard sociological research on this water dispute, I'm analyzing supply chains and legal contracts.
But if you're using this framework, you have to analyze the human drivers. Like, is the factory's expansion driven by lobha, by unyielding greed?
Or are the farmers' protests being fueled by dosa? A blind anger that prevents any real negotiation?
Or is the local government operating out of moha, just a complete ignorance or delusion about the long-term environmental impact?
It ensures the research remains incredibly human-centric. You are literally diagnosing the spiritual and psychological roots of a physical conflict.
And that naturally brings us to step 3, Nirodha, the cessation of suffering.
Right. In the academic world, Nirodha becomes the research objective. You are envisioning the peaceful outcome.
What would this community actually look like if this water problem was solved and the suffering ceased?
It gives the research this undeniable moral compass. You aren't just researching to get published in some journal. Your stated objective is the cessation of the specific suffering you identified in step 1.
But, having a goal isn't enough on its own. You need a way to actually get there.
Which brings us to step 4 of the Noble Truths. Magga, the path. This translates directly to the actual research methodology, the action plan.
And the course materials specifically mention using something called Padhana 4 to diagnose the community and figure out what research action is needed to reach that peaceful outcome.
Yeah, Padhana 4.
What exactly are those 4 steps, and how do they function as a methodology in the field?
So Padhana 4 refers to the 4 right exertions in Buddhism. It's essentially a system of effort.
Okay.
Let's apply it to the researcher in that water dispute. The first exertion is to prevent negative states that haven't arisen yet.
Prevent the negative.
Right. So methodologically, the researcher might set up an intervention to stop misinformation from spreading between the farmers and the factory workers before it causes violence.
Wow, so the researcher is actively intervening to prevent harm.
Yes, exactly. You're not just watching. The second exertion is to overcome negative states that are already present.
Okay, so maybe conducting mediation workshops to de-escalate the current dosa or anger in the town council meetings?
Spot on. Then the third is to cultivate positive states that aren't there yet.
Like initiating a collaborative water-sharing dialogue where none existed before.
Yes. And the fourth exertion is to maintain the positive states that have been established.
Right.
Like helping the community draft a sustainable long-term charter.
It's a complete, self-contained, philosophically robust research design. The researcher isn't just studying the problem, they are exerting targeted effort to actually heal it.
It's active.
Very active. And what stands out to me in the slides is this concept where they literally frame the Buddha as a researcher prototype.
I love that phrase.
Think about it. He wasn't just a mystic sitting under a tree. He was someone who identified the ultimate problem of human existence, tested different methodologies, discarded the ascetic practices that didn't work.
Because the extremes didn't yield results.
Right, and then he published his findings so others could replicate the experiment.
He was entirely empirical in his approach to the mind. He literally told his followers, don't believe things just because I said them, test the methods yourselves.
There's an incredible quote they include from the Pashtang Sutra that really hammers this home. The Buddha says, as long as the monks cultivate the awakening factor of investigation of truth, only growth is to be expected for them, not decline.
So the investigation of truth isn't a distraction from their spiritual practice?
No, it is the practice.
And the course's learning targets explicitly state that students must integrate Buddhist principles with research methodology to design a systematic research proposal.
And then actually conduct a pilot study.
Right, to develop what they call a Buddhist innovation.
Yeah.
They're taking this ancient framework and using it to generate entirely new knowledge to solve modern problems.
Now, anyone listening right now might think this sounds like a very relaxed, meditative class, where you sit in a circle, talk about empathy, and map out your feelings on a whiteboard.
Oh, absolutely not.
No. We need to talk about the crucible of the classroom itself, the evaluation and the requirements.
Because the syllabus is notoriously strict.
Let's be real, the irony here is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Buddhism in Western pop culture is fundamentally associated with letting go of attachments, going with the flow, not clinging to rigid bureaucratic structures.
Right, just breathe and let it be.
But Dr. Wattanapradith's syllabus, it is as tight as a military operation. This is no easy A. Let's look at the structure of this 15-week semester. Right off the bat, there is a minimum 80% attendance requirement just to pass the course.
Just to pass. And the grading breakdown is where it gets incredibly specific. 20% of your grade is ethics and participation.
Okay.
30% is individual reflective analysis. And 50% is integrated knowledge and communication. Let's start with that 20% ethics grade.
Yeah.
Punctuality is literally graded.
Wait, like clocking in?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
If you show up late, your ethics grade takes a mathematical hit.
That's wild, and it gets even more intense when you look at the 30% individual reflective analysis. Students have to submit these AARs after action reviews.
Oh, the AAR.
Every single week, on the day of the class, they have to log into the system by midnight and answer 3 prompts. What did you learn today? What are you still wondering about? And how will you apply this to your own research?
And they also have guided practice. It's a mandatory 1-hour out-of-class session in groups of 3. They have to submit their worksheet before the start of the next class.
And if they miss it?
If they miss the deadline, the penalty is a 20% deduction per day.
Per day?
Per day, yeah. If you're 3 days late, you've mathematically failed the assignment.
And we haven't even touched on the 50% integrated knowledge portion, which is the massive research proposal. They have to write a 15 to 20-page document covering chapters 1 through 3 in English.
With a minimum of 15 sources from specific academic databases like Scopus or TCI.
They have to use exact MCU referencing, and it must be formatted in 1.5 spacing, 12-point times New Roman font.
And you can't just upload a file called myresearch.pdf.
God forbid.
It has to follow exact naming conventions, like proposal _ student ID _ name. Oh, and the iron fist of academic integrity, turn-in similarity reports are required with every proposal. Plagiarism is an instant fail.
Okay, I have to aggressively push back on this. You're telling me that getting a 20% deduction because I uploaded a document in Arial font instead of Times New Roman, or because I messed up an underscore in a file name, is somehow a spiritual lesson.
I know, it sounds rigid.
It sounds like a massive stretch to justify grueling academic bureaucracy. How on earth does rigid formatting align with the 4 noble truths?
It seems totally contradictory until you connect it back to those root causes of suffering we discussed earlier. Lobha, dosa, and especially moha.
Right, moha, delusion and ignorance.
Moha is delusion, ignorance, or a scattered, unmindful state. In a modern academic setting, what does moha actually look like?
I guess. Sloppiness.
It looks like intellectual laziness.
Yeah.
It looks like sloppy research, failing to cite your sources accurately, or plagiarizing someone else's work because you procrastinated and panicked.
So you're saying the bureaucracy is a defense mechanism against moha?
Exactly. The rigid academic rules are a modern form of ascetic discipline. In ancient times, ascetic discipline meant fasting or meditating in extreme conditions to train the mind. Today, for a graduate researcher, it means adhering to extreme structure.
Wow.
The instructor grading your file naming conventions is essentially enforcing mindfulness. You cannot just coast on autopilot. You have to be entirely present and aware of your actions down to the keystroke.
Okay, I see the logic, but it still feels really punishing.
It is demanding by design, though. Those AARs due by midnight. They force the student to reflect immediately, preventing the material from just fading into the background noise of life. It builds cognitive endurance.
Because you can't investigate the truth, as the Pashtang Sutra demands, if your mind is scattered.
Right. If you're undisciplined and falling victim to moha. The strict syllabus is basically the boundary of the sandbox that forces you to build a structurally sound sandcastle.
That does reframe the cruelty of a midnight deadline, I have to admit. And they really put these students through the ringer to test that structural soundness. Like, week 8 is a midterm where all 21 students have a randomized 5-minute presentation of their research idea.
And you don't know when you're going up.
No. The pressure mounts in weeks 10 through 14 with the proposed